Hello everyone. We'll just make a quick start to the session here. So just to let you know, the session is recorded, so you will be able to listen back and you'll get a link shared with you, etc. afterwards. So if your connection does drop, don't worry, we will get that shared with you. So obviously this morning we're going to have a quick look at the MSc Real Estate programme. You can see on the slide there that the course director is Dr. Jasmine Lim. Now Jasmine's online with us today but has got a sore throat, so she's asked me to step in for her. So my name's Leslie Hempel and I'm actually the course director of the undergraduate real estate programme, but also teach on the MSc, so hopefully we'll be able to take you through this presentation. If at any point you do want to ask questions, you'll see in the bottom there's a chat bar, so it's just the chat bubble there, and you can type a question in there and we're willing to answer those either during the presentation or at the end. Once I finish these slides, then we're going to be joined by a couple of past graduates on the programme, so a couple of students that have obviously been where you guys were previously and have come through the programme and are now out working in industry. So they'll also be there to answer any questions that you might have at the end. So they'll come in a little bit later on. So with that in mind, we'll make a start in terms of the slides themselves. Okay, so what we wanted to overview with you first of all is really what's the benefits of coming to study at Ulster. And I don't know the background of obviously who we have with us today, so some of you may already have done your undergraduate degree at Ulster. If you haven't, then just to kind of give you a bit of an insight into what we can offer you. So first and foremost, we offer a lot of different conversion courses, and that's really what this real estate program is all about. We're anticipating that people are coming from different backgrounds and varied backgrounds at that. So it's all about trying to fast track you across from whatever your core undergraduate degree discipline was into obviously this real estate discipline. We also hopefully will give you a competitive edge in terms of employment, and you'll see that in terms of some of the statistics that we have as we go through some of the subsequent slides. Hopefully it gives you a sense of personal fulfillment, and I think we all need that at the minute after kind of the last 18 months that we have, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we're back on campus in a few weeks' time, etc. And therefore, again, we can start to build up that sense of community as well. You're taught obviously by experts in the field, not only in terms of the core real estate team, but also then we have various industry people that do come in and obviously support your study and facilitate site visits and various other activities that we undertake. You have a supportive learning and study environment, and obviously if you're joining the programme this year, we'll talk about it a little bit later on, but we'll be still at the Jordanstown campus for semester 1, and then we'll be due to move into the new Belfast campus, hopefully in semester 2. So again, you'll get to experience hopefully 2 different campuses during the next year or so. Again, it's all about trying to get you academic and professional qualification, and just to reassure you that again the staff members associated have those qualifications already, and obviously it's about now building your skill sets in these areas as well, getting you ready for going out to work in industry. And with that in mind, we obviously do have very good links with industry and with our employers, etc. And you'll see that in terms of some of the sponsorship that we have for the programme as well. Okay, so I mentioned there's some stats just around the quantifiable benefits of why you should start to think about studying obviously a master's degree. And this isn't specific to the real estate programme, this is across the board, any particular masters that you might be looking at. So first and foremost, we can see that on average, a postgraduate course could earn you up to £7,000 more than a traditional graduate. Okay, so at the minute, you guys are maybe coming out with an undergraduate degree, but by deciding to come on and stay on and do your masters straight away, that starts to elevate your pay income, and would do once you go out to work into industry. We can also see the stat about your employability. So we can see postgraduates are 21% more likely to be in high skilled employment and probably gain that quicker than your traditional undergraduate route. And we can see that increased earnings then has been carried out in terms of various research projects, and that the higher you go up in terms of your levels of qualifications, then the greater your earnings are said to increase as well. So that's kind of the background, you can see the sources that some of those statistics, etc., have been taken from. So that's reassuring for you guys taking that step now to think about coming on to a master's program. Just in terms of kind of the financial side of things, obviously we know that it is quite a big expense to decide to go on and do the master's program. So just in terms of the fees for this incoming academic year, you can see at the minute they're set at £6,270. Now, that doesn't necessarily have to be paid up front, but you can see there's a 5% discount if you do decide to go for that upfront payment. There's also some loans available, so you can see it doesn't cover the full amount of the program, but it could cover the vast majority of it. And then there's also flexible payment options. So if you decide not to go for the upfront payment, you can spread that payment over the course of the 12 months, etc. So there is various different options available for you. If you do happen to be an Ulster graduate, you can also get a further 10% reduction just because you've come through, obviously, your undergrad with University of Ulster. Okay, so just to kind of talk a bit more about the program. So obviously what I've focused on so far is more about coming to Ulster and about undertaking a master's. So obviously you guys are wanting to know more about the real estate program itself. And you can see this is some of our past graduates in our dedicated room on the Jordanstown campus, enjoying obviously a chat and a talk around some of their coursework, etc. So just quickly to give you the overview of the program and some of the information around what you'll study, etc. So as we mentioned up front, it is designed as this fast track conversion course. So that's really saying that any discipline at undergraduate level can come onto our program. So there's no exclusions there. We're not saying, oh, you must have done a degree in economics or you must have done a degree in business studies or whatever. Clearly, those subjects could be beneficial, but basically we've taken students from a wide variety of different backgrounds. So we've had people in the past that have come through from undergraduate music degrees, some that have come through from theology degrees, some that have obviously studied economics or maths or some of these other topics, but there's no hard and fast rule on that. So it is very much building you from the basics right the way through to then the more complex topics that we obviously cover. Not sure if we have any international students on the line. If so, there is a minimum IELTS score of 6 with no band less than 5.5. So that's more about English language skills, etc. So may or may not ultimately apply. So in terms of the real estate program itself, we have been running an undergraduate degree since the 1980s, and we've been running our postgraduate degree now for probably about the last maybe 7 or 8 years, etc. So quite an established program and one that has a good reputation in the field. And you can see that reflected in the undergraduate league table ranking for our subject discipline. So land and property management is the subject discipline, and currently we're sitting at 3rd place within the UK in terms of our own particular program. So that's just something of the esteem that the program's held in, and obviously it's the same course team that teach both the undergraduate and the postgrad, and there's a strong element of what's taught at undergraduate degree level then is also brought through and taught to you guys on the postgraduate program. In terms of the appeal of the program, it's suitable obviously for any discipline, as we had mentioned. I think it's also important to mention this idea of going on to become a chartered surveyor, because this is one of the key aspects that our program ultimately offers. So our program is fully accredited by our professional body, which is the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, and therefore it ticks the box, if you like, in terms of having an accredited degree. Okay, so if you want to become a chartered surveyor in the future, one of the stipulations is that you must have undertaken an accredited RICS degree. So our course is obviously accredited. And just to mention, we are accredited for 3 different pathways, and this really again links to the wider employability of the program. So we're accredited on the commercial property route, the residential property route, and the valuation route. Okay, so those are 3 different pathways. So in other words, once you graduate from the program, you could go into a graduate program that would take you through obviously a series of maybe rotations where you would move through the different departments within their organisation, and then you would determine which was the best fit for you, and then you could decide which route you were going to go down in terms of your professional membership, etc. In terms of kind of the core disciplines that we cover, and we'll talk about this in a bit more detail in a minute or two, but we cover obviously the property development side, we cover the property valuation side, we cover property management, and we cover the investment route. Okay, so there's the core elements that really come through on the teaching side, and you'll see those reflected in the modules whenever we get to those. And really, our emphasis is primarily on the commercial property market, but that's not to say that students don't also go out and work in the residential field. So you may have a preference at this point in time, you may not have a preference, that's also fine. You'll see then as you come through the various modules, etc., which area you might feel that is more suited to you and your skill sets, etc., and then want to go into that accordingly. But I'll talk a bit more about some of the careers as we go through the later slides. And we also try and make sure that we've got an international outlook. And over the last number of years, we have had obviously a number of international students also coming onto the programme. So I think that just enriches the kind of cohort of students that you could be learning with. Obviously some challenges at the minute about whether that's likely to happen in the next 12 months or so, but certainly in the past we have, and therefore the modules reflect that in terms of their content. So in terms of us, what we can offer you, we all are very much research active. So you get research informed teaching, which means that we bring some of what we're kind of finding out through our research into the classroom. So it's getting you the cutting edge of what's actually happening out in industry and also what's coming through from the research side. The programme itself, we usually try and keep our numbers relatively low, so I'm not sure how many exactly are coming on this year because we're still waiting for confirmation of who have accepted, or indeed if you guys have applied for this year or you're thinking ahead in terms of next year, etc. But it tends to be somewhere between kind of 8 and 15 would be the numbers that usually come on. Now, we do have some shared teaching, so some modules are shared maybe with some planning cohorts, and some are also shared with some of the final years, etc. So there is some classes that might be slightly bigger than that, but whenever we get into seminars, then it would always be just our own core discipline. And that means you get good one-to-one time. So if you're struggling in any aspects, for example, some of the more mathematics side to modules, etc., you do get the chance to sit down with your lecturers and obviously understand those elements that wee bit more. I already mentioned this long-standing relationship with our professional body and the importance of it then in terms of going on to become a chartered surveyor if you do wish to do so. And again, just those links to industry is really important, not only from the point of view of them coming in to talk to us, but also then in terms of our coursework. So we try as much as possible to make our coursework real life, and therefore you're already preparing yourself for going out into industry once you leave the programme. Okay, so just a bit about the programme itself then. Obviously, if you do decide to go into the real estate discipline, it isn't a 9-to-5 office job. You're not going to be sitting at a desk all the time because obviously each property is different. You need to be out obviously looking at these properties, understanding who's going to be buying them, who's selling them, speaking then with the lawyers in terms of the legal documentation, speaking with the planners in terms of what would be allowed on that site, etc., speaking with the banks and the investors in terms of the financial side of things, speaking with the developers in terms of what are you going to put on that site and what would work best. And that involves obviously a load of different skills such as inspecting them, being able to measure them up, being able to put a value on them, etc. And then obviously once they're completed, that also continues into the management side, which is the negotiation then of the new tenants coming in on behalf of landlords, etc. So various different aspects all coming through and very much covered in terms of this course. And that comes through then in terms of the modules themselves. So you can see the modules are spread across 3 different semesters. So semester 1 is the one that we're just about to start now in September. So that runs from end of September through to about the middle of December. Then you have your examination period during the early part of January. and then you start the second semester kind of last week in January, and that'll run through to end of April, early part of May. Then after that, you can decide to either go on to the dissertation module, which is a big report that obviously involves your own research, etc., or you can decide to go out and work in industry and do the work-based learning project, which is linked then to an industry internship. So different options depending on whether or not you've got a background in real estate and want to gain some practical experience, or indeed if you decide to go down the more research-based route. So we can see the subjects then in semester one in this first column. So you're studying real estate economics. You've got valuation, which Jasmine herself teaches. Then you've got sustainable real estate, which I teach, and we've got a professional practice module, which is a combination of Jasmine and myself. So that professional practice module is a relatively new module that we've brought through over the last year or so, that covers some aspects such as measurement, a bit of agency in there, a bit of the ethics side, etc. Then you move into semester two. So you've got your investment valuation. You've got a big development module. So basically we give you a site and you determine what uses you would put onto that site, and you do the financial appraisal linked to that. You've got your real estate asset management, which is more about understanding the leases and the legal side of it, and also then how you engage with tenants in terms of rent reviews and that type of thing. And then we've got our international real estate markets module. And then, as I say, the final semester is linked then to dissertation or indeed work-based learning. Not sure if anybody on the line is linked to the part-time mode, but instead of it being spread across just the 3 semesters, it's now spread across 3 years. So you can see the split then between semester 1 and semester 2 in terms of year 1, and then the bottom part of the slide there, year 2, in terms of semester 1 and semester 2, and then basically you take a full year for either the dissertation, or if you're not working in real estate industry, then obviously going on to some sort of an internship. But we can answer any specific questions on these modules at the end. Again, just in terms of some of the core skills that you'll get from the program, a lot of things that you would expect to see in a real estate program. So you can see communication skills, negotiation, understanding the market, understanding the ethics and the professional practice, being able to solve problems, etc. All of those you would expect, as you would market research and analysis, etc. But some wider skills, such as obviously understanding a bit more about sustainability and climate change and how this is influencing the market. Also a bit then on that measurement and surveying side, and understanding some of the property defects and how they impact on value, etc. And obviously the wider business skills for some students decide to go out and eventually 5 years time might have that idea of opening their own estate agency, etc. So there is obviously some of those wider business skills linked into the program as well. In terms of how you're taught, as mentioned in that kind of diagram earlier, you've got 4 15 credit point modules per semester, so effectively 8 taught modules during semester 1 and then semester 2, and then obviously a bigger dissertation or work-based project in that semester 3. Typically speaking, you're talking about 3 to 4 contact hours per module, so that would equate roughly to about 36 contact hours to 48 contact hours over the 12 weeks. Okay, so each module having 3 to 4 hours over 12 weeks, which is either 36 or 48 hours over the whole semester. And then that's multiplied by 4 in terms of you having 4 top modules, or if you're doing it in a part-time route, having 2 top modules. The rest of it then is obviously made up of independent study. Okay, so the anticipation that you need to obviously go and do additional work yourselves beyond what you'd be doing in the classroom. And that additional study may also include workshops that we have, field trips that we have, obviously additional computer practicals, etc., depending on the modules, or site visits to go out and do some measurement tasks, etc. Most modules have a combination of coursework and exam. Some will be 100% coursework, such as the likes of your regeneration module. That's a big weighty piece of coursework. Others are then a 50-50 split between coursework and exam. And I see James has joined us here, so he'll be able to give you first-hand knowledge of exactly what it was like and what the coursework was like, etc. Okay, moving on, just briefly talking about the financial side of things. We obviously had talked about the fees earlier on. Just to mention, we have really good sponsorship from industry. There's a couple of ways that that comes through. It comes through in terms of end-of-year awards, which are known as our Real Estate Excellence Awards. So the top 2 students in the year group qualify for those Real Estate Excellence Awards. We also have further sponsorship from Knight Frank in Dublin. So if you decided that you wanted to go down to Dublin to do your internship down there, you could potentially avail then of their scholarship, which I think is it's either €1,000 or £1,000. So again, you can put that towards your fees or towards your living costs, etc. So it's not stipulated how you must spend that money, but again, really good links through with industry in that regard. There's also wider networking opportunities because we again bring industry into the classroom, and we have various events that we get you and encourage you to go along to where you can meet up with industry. And indeed, I think James probably will be able to talk to you about some of the RICS Matrix, which is the young arm of our professional body, and some of the events that they'll be hosting over the next 12 months, and see then if some of you want to go along and get involved in those. And hopefully you will, for their good fun and a good way to meet other young people that have graduated from either the undergraduate or indeed this master's program. Okay, so this is just some of the commercial industry people that are employing our graduates. So you can see we've got a number of big international companies here: CBRE, Savills, Colliers, Cushman & Wakefield, GVA, Grimley, JLL, etc. All these are big international companies. Then we've got other local companies, so OKT in Belfast, who James works for. We've got Lisney, we've got Osborne King, etc. You'll see Lidl up there. Don't think that we've lost the plot here and thinking that you're coming through a real estate program and then you're going to go and work in a supermarket. It would be working in the development side of Lidl, because as you know, they're opening up more and more stores, and obviously they need real estate professionals then to advise them on where the best locations for those stores would be, etc. Okay, so that's the reason they're there as a good employer as well. If the residential side is more your thing, you can see again a load of the different people that are involved on that residential side. So again, they're a big employer of our graduates. And then on the public sector side, again, we can see some of the typical people. So the likes of Land and Property Services, who are involved in the rating side, etc., are a big employer, and they're taking a number of our graduates, as indeed do the housing executive and some of the housing associations, etc., and some of the city councils. So there's a variety of different options available to you. Okay, so hopefully you guys have already applied or certainly thinking about applying. It should be a relatively straightforward process. You can go online to our ulsterac.uk and you'll find the real estate program listed there. So you should be able to do that okay. And I think there's just a couple of final slides then about more the move to the Belfast campus. We had hoped that it was going to be in September, but for the real estate program, we'll currently be at Jordanstown in semester 1, but hopefully come January, we'll be relocating into that Belfast campus. And just a wider note on obviously the COVID-19 situation. We have been delivering remotely over this past year, but we are now hopeful that we should be on the campus, hopefully now in a couple of weeks' time. So if anything changes in that regard, obviously we'll keep you informed, and it's all in line with whatever the public health guidance is at that given time, etc. So don't be concerned about that. We take our advice and our guidance from them. Okay, so thanks very much for that. At this point, I'm just going to pass over to Jasmine. Hopefully She's well enough to pick up her mic at this point. I know James is trying to get in and out. He's kind of flitting in and out in terms of his internet connection there, but I think Jasmine's maybe going to have a quick chat with James whenever he does get back in. But if there is any questions in the meantime while James is reconnecting, please feel free to use that chat bar at the bottom there, and we'll try and answer those for you. Okay, thank you.